Hey everybody, Edwin the Magic Engineer here, and I want to talk to you guys about an interesting subject. The fact that I play vintage Magic because I can't afford standard. And I know that sounds really weird, that sounds awkward, but it's been the case for a long time, and let me explain why. Um, just for the monetary side of it, and this is kind of from an engineer's perspective, I can't not look at something and analyze it. I can't not think about, how much money or time or effort is going into something that I don't actually really get to enjoy. What happens is, you go out and you spend all this money on standard, you buy all these booster boxes, and, you get your deck all set, and let's say you constructed it yourself, and the chances are pretty small most of the time that you're going to win if you constructed it yourself these days, because everybody just net decks, which is really unfortunate. So let's say you actually go out and you net deck, and so you buy all the cards that everyone else wants. All these cards get printed, you ignore all of them, and you just go get the ones that everyone else bought, and they're all super expensive. So you spent like $600, $800, $900 on your standard deck. And for young guys or gals that have that kind of time, they can get into it and use it, at least get some use out of it, maybe trade it away. So I'm not saying this is a thing for everybody, but what happens for a career guy like me, a husband and a father and someone who's working a career like an engineer, what happens is you spend all this money, you get these cards, and then your boss at work is like, oh, something really important happens, I really need you for a while, and then you just don't get to play for a while. And the next time you come back and you look at this deck, it's like $300 because, it's rotated out of standard. Nobody wants these cards anymore. It's now competing against cards that are in modern or legacy or vintage, and it's just not as good as those other cards. And so it's in terms of like asset or liability, it's actually a liability, investing in these standard cards. So in contrast, I wanted to show some examples. Let's say, it's 2006 and you decide to go buy a dual land. This is a volcanic island, and at the time, someone's asking you for $20 for a volcanic island. So you go out and you buy it because it's a great card. Everybody wants a card like that. It's usable in any format that it's allowed in, and it's one of the best cards around. And everything that new they make doesn't seem to really compete with it. So you go ahead and you put your money into it, right? And then later on, the price of it goes up and it hits $60, right? For this one dual land. And what happens is you start talking to other people, and they're big standard players, but you're like, no, I'm a legacy player. I'm going to spend $60 on that dual land. And they're thinking like, well, gosh, how many booster packs could I actually get with that $60 instead of that one land? So, standard players a lot of times would be like, I'm not going to buy that. I want to get this. I want to get all these booster packs, and I want to keep playing standard. So then you think, okay, well, that's fine, So I went ahead and played Legacy, and they went ahead and played standard. But, what did they spend on all that? Maybe they spent $80 on buying all those booster packs and stuff like that. And then a while later, you know what happens? This one card in Legacy, it starts going up. Now it's worth more money, right? But, all those booster packs, well, they dropped in value. So if, that standard player was going to have to want to try to equalize up, he's got to start adding booster boxes to stuff, right? Okay, so that standard player, maybe he's going to start adding booster boxes. Later on, your one card value keeps going up. There's Kaladesh. Maybe he's going to go out and buy him some Innistrad or something. So here's the standard player. He's buying all this sealed product. Maybe later on he adds another. And in the meantime, your one investment just keeps going up that you spent money on a while ago. And then what happens? Let's say a while later, you're like, oh, I get hit with an issue. Something in life. I need to fix an engine in my car. I need to pay for school. I need to pay rent or something. So you put your one little legacy card on eBay that you probably spent $20 on, or maybe your price point was $100. You bought it at $100, and now you put it on eBay and you get all that money, right? And what do? They have all these cards, but most of this is just going to sit in a bulk box, right? It's not really the same because it costs the same at some point, At some point later, this one card might cost like all this. But what are you going to sell all that for? Like a while ago, a while later, it doesn't really translate. So the reason why I can't afford standard is because I spend all this money and I buy a deck, and then it rotates out and it's gone. So the fun factor isn't there unless you can really utilize the time. And then the investment value isn't really there, because instead of being an asset, it ends up being a liability. It actually ends up losing money. And then what you actually end up doing if you get involved in like legacy or vintage is you specifically look at cards. They've gone into the pool of all the other Magic cards around them. And players have decided these ones aren't as good. These ones are good. It's kind of like standing the test of time against all the rest of the open market, if you will. And sometimes, there's a fad factor. Somebody will like have a pro tour and like they'll play a legacy deck and everyone will love it and everyone will be like, oh, Leovold is great, and then all of a sudden Leovold's price shoots up. That kind of thing does happen, and you might be able to speculate with that. But the thing is, if you can get a bunch of cards at the right price, and then you're kind of spread out in legacy, and then a bunch of value shoots up over here, then you sell those and you go buy something else, and you just kind of move it into that legacy value. Perfect examples, I've got like some Mishra's baubles from Cold Snap, and I'm going to be, actually I have those Mishra's baubles on eBay right now because their values shot up, and I look at it and think, I'm not going to use this in decks for what I play. I'm going to sell these Mishra's baubles and maybe buy some of the legacy cards. Maybe I'll buy a couple Bayous or something like that because I'm a little low on Bayous at the moment. So you just transfer value from one to the other. And what do I think is going to go up long term? I don't think that the Cold Snap cards are going to go up, in relation to like something like a Bayou. Maybe I'll buy some revised Amano Tutors. I think those are going to keep going up. And I'm not doing this for profit. I actually want to have legacy decks that I actually play. But the point is, I can't afford standard because I can't churn it. I can't move that money into other decks. I can't keep playing it. And like, especially with vintage and legacy and even modern, you buy a deck, you invest in it, you love it for a while, and then you have to get busy with something for a while. And then you come back and that deck's still worth a bunch of money. It's still viable in the format. And what happens is you go out and you buy all this standard stuff, and then it's just like money gone. Money's just, it disappears because you wasted it on stuff. So anyways, it's my perspective on it. It's why I play the way I actually play. It's an engineer's perspective as someone who doesn't have the free time, who wants to put money into something that's going to continue for a while. And so that's why I'm a vintage and a legacy player, because I can't afford standard. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.